Should you be DIYing your finances in an age where you can just type in anything you want into AI tools or YouTube or whatever and find the answer? Why would anybody pay for a financial planner? Isn't that silly? Isn't it just a waste of money to pay for advice in a world where it's so accessible? So to address this question, I think that we should start with a poll that I think is going to shock you. Consider Michelangelo's David. It's one of the best sculptures of all time. It's recognized, obviously, as an icon of art. And in a recent poll, they asked Americans, could you sculpt David? Could you do it? Could you be like Michelangelo and create such a beautiful sculpture? So let's see the results. So, percent of Americans who think they could recreate David. A recent poll said 9% of Americans believed they could definitely or probably replicate Michelangelo's David. Given all the materials and sufficient free time, of course. Now think about this age group wise. Among young adults, 18 to 29, 21% thought they could recreate it, 1 in 5. But among boomers, among older people, only 1% expressed this confidence. So hopefully you're watching this and you realize how patently ridiculous this is. One of the greatest masters of art of all time, 1 in 5 20-somethings thought that they could match Michelangelo. Now, what does that show about financial planning? I'm going to dive into that next. So a lot of folks will look at the list of things that financial planning is supposed to do, and they'll be like, oh, I'm doing 1 of these, or I'm doing 3 of these. I'm good. I don't need any help. A lot of people max out their 401ks, especially if you're a higher income person like a physician or a dentist or something, and even a 10% contribution might max out your 401k, and you might say, I'm good. And then, a lot of people also will max out a backdoor Roth IRA, and they'll be like, okay, I'm good. A lot of people will put money into brokerage accounts regularly and be like, okay, I'm good. But it's really all the things that happen in the context of this that add value. So for example, if you're putting money in a brokerage account, are you doing tax loss harvesting where you're creating paper losses? And then also, are you also donating appreciated stocks to charity instead of cash to actively manage your cost basis? A lot of people are not doing that. A lot of people might say, oh, I'm good. If I die, my family has got it figured out. But do you have a will? Do you have a guardianship plan if you have children? Do you have an estate plan in general? Do you have healthcare directives? Do you have power of attorney set up? All those sorts of things. Most people do not. Insurance coverages. A lot of people are like, oh, I got homeowners insurance. Well, have you looked at, do you have flood coverage? Have you looked at what happens with your policy options? So for example, are you covered for sewer backup? If so, is there a cap on the damages the sewer backup will cover? Do you have term life? Do you have disability insurance? If you have a professional degree that you've invested 6 figures in, are you adequately covered with the definition of disability? All those sorts of things. If you're not doing that, a lot of people leave too much money in cash. So I see all the time people will do their backdoor Roth and then they'll let it sit in cash for a couple of years before remembering, oops, I didn't actually invest it. A lot of times people will have 6 figures in cash because they're just scared of the market, creating a big return drag on their portfolio. Another one is taking advantage of tax bracket planning. So for example, the 12% tax bracket goes up to a certain amount, and then it goes to the 22% bracket, and then the 24%, and then the 32% bracket. A lot of people don't optimize those. For example, you might do pre-tax to maximize everything in the 22% bracket, but then switch to Roth and in your 401k once you're solidly into the 12% bracket, for example. A lot of people don't think about that. One of the big things that financial planning talks about is spouses managing conflict around money. It's very helpful to have a third party. You're probably not going to get it in marriage counseling perfectly because of the financial technical parts of things. But when you think about managing competing goals, that's probably the highest ROI thing of all that happens in financial planning is if you have 2 spouses that are on different pages on financial goals and you have competing resources, how do you have a happy relationship? Well, one of the ways is having conversations regularly and good communication, and also sometimes a helpful third party to talk about these competing goals in a way that doesn't make you and your spouse hate each other. And then a couple other things, having a 529 account for college or a UTMA or UGMA account for your kids, making sure you're not overfunding it or you're not underfunding it. Your student loans, if you have 6 figures of student loans, that plan is optimized, you're filing taxes the right way, you're thinking about your retirement and pre-tax account contributions versus brokerage account contributions, given that you have 6 figures of student loans in the right way. And if you don't have student loans, that's fine. And then the last thing is you're working the right amount of hours to maximize your happiness. A lot of people are working more hours than they want to work. A lot of people don't even realize they could cut back on their hours. It's an option. It's not a requirement, but a lot of times people haven't looked into the details. So those are some of the financial planning-y things about why it's kind of hard to DIY your finances well. But let's look at a couple investment things. Do you remember that poll from earlier where 1 in 5 young Americans thought that they could sculpt Michelangelo? So this is there's an analogy to make here with people that think all you got to do is buy one fund for the rest of your life. So a lot of people out there in the Reddit and online crowd and Facebook groups around financial independence will say all you need is the total stock market index fund forever and always, and that's the only fund you ever need. And a lot of that is coming from the very strong outperformance of the U.S. markets versus international markets and growth markets versus value markets really over the past 10 to 15 years. So if you're looking at this chart, this is the U.S. index, this is the international index of performance, and then this is the outperformance by the U.S. So in green, the U.S. markets outperformed by that amount. In red, the international markets outperformed by that amount. So you can see since 2008, pretty much the U.S. markets have beaten international markets in the majority of the years. And when international markets have outperformed, really they have outperformed by single digits with the exception of 2025. And, but some of these outperformances by the U.S. markets have been double digits, like comfortably double digits. I mean, you can just see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years in the past 15 or so that U.S. markets have outperformed international markets by double digits. Well, is that always the case? Well, if you look back in time, in the 2000s, it was a rough period for U.S. markets. In the mid-'80s, it was a disastrous period for U.S. markets. But young people haven't lived as much life experience as older people. And so a lot of times people assume that the past is going to look like the future, even though literally, as an SEC registered investment advisor, we have to always say past performance does not guarantee future results. And if you look at, now this is large cap versus small cap value in particular, but you can look at the dominance of growth stocks too. So this is the U.S. Broad Market Large Cap Index, and this is the Small Cap Value Index in this column. And then this is the difference in performance. Green means the large cap growth stocks outperformed the small cap value. If you look at the past 10 years or so, you can see a pretty strong outperformance of big growth companies over small value companies. And again, what are people going to say if people have owned one fund or have owned, frankly, just a lot of big large cap growth stocks or tech stocks? Their performance has been pretty solid. The problem is folks are not thinking about the long term. Take a look at performance here in the 2000s. You can go back here, performance in the 70s and early 80s, right? So that's not to say that there's a perfect amount of this asset class versus that asset class in a portfolio. What's important is that you have diversification and you're able to stick with it. So for the folks that buy the large cap tech stocks and will stick with them the next time we have a period of the 1980s and U.S. stocks underperform horrifically, then that's the right allocation for them because they're able to stick with it. But what tends to happen is people performance chase and don't realize they're performance chasing because of overconfidence bias, kind of like the hot hand at the casino fallacy, and then folks cost themselves a lot of money. So couple closing thoughts to leave you with. If you want to try out profession-specific financial planning for folks who paid 6 figures for their education, we would love to help. SLPwealth.com is the place to go. You can click on the Get Started button, and then you can continue to sign up. I will say that you can't guarantee things in finances, but one thing that I can guarantee is that if you're paying attention to your finances, if you think about what your big goals are, if you try to address the emotional side of finances, which is addressing all of these behavioral biases and overconfidence biases and things that trip people up in getting to their goals, that you will very likely get there to where you want to be much faster. And a trusted advisor can help you get there. We'd love to be somebody that you would try for this, but also keep in mind that you can follow SLP Wealth online and get more content like the above that will hopefully get you thinking deeper about your money and your goals. Thanks for following Student Loan Plan.